supercars dominate races. This one made legends rethink their careers. A beast so ruthless, it broke competitors before the green light even dropped. Teams pulled out. Champions hesitated. Drivers called it untamable. This wasn't just a race car, it was a monster. Meet the beast that silenced champions and scarred motorsports forever. In 1997, the FIA GT Championship wasn't just competitive, it was a war. McLaren was already making headlines with the F1 GTR. Porsche had unleashed their fierce 911 GT1, and Ferrari was cooking up the monstrous F50 GT behind closed doors. It was clear, this wasn't a playground for the weak. And Mercedes, a brand known for calm, polished luxury, wasn't about to just watch from the sidelines. They wanted to be part of the conversation. They wanted to dominate it, to crush the competition so badly that no one would dare challenge them again. But there was a catch. The FIA had strict rules. If you wanted to race, you had to build and sell a few road-legal versions of your race car to the public. Most companies took the easy route, starting with a street car and then beefing it up for racing. Mercedes, though, didn't care about easy. Instead of taking a luxury car and making it faster, they built a full-blown race car from scratch and then figured out how to make just enough changes to legally sell a few on the road. They weren't building a race-inspired road car. They were building a race car first and only pretending it could survive on public streets. That's how the Mercedes-Benz CLK GTR came into existence. Not out of a desire to create something beautiful or comfortable, but out of a need to win at all costs. It was a car so brutal, so demanding, that even professional racing drivers who spent their lives taming high-speed monsters admitted the CLK GTR felt borderline suicidal to handle. It wasn't just fast, it was fast with an attitude, and it didn't care who you were. If you didn't respect it, it would absolutely destroy you in a matter of seconds. When building this beast, Mercedes didn't have the luxury of time. They weren't working with a 5-year plan or a careful design schedule. They had less than 6 months to dream up, build, and perfect a car that could go toe-to-toe with the best in the world and come out on top. So, they went straight into attack mode. First, they did something bold. They actually bought a McLaren F1 GTR, which was their main enemy on the track, just so they could tear it apart piece by piece and figure out exactly what made it tick. They studied every detail, every bolt, every aerodynamic trick, and then told their engineers at AMG to make something even better. And that's exactly what they did. The CLK GTR wasn't just fast, it was built like a high-speed weapon. It had a full carbon fiber monocoque chassis that was lighter and stronger than anything Mercedes had ever put into a car before. It was powered by a screaming 6-liter naturally aspirated V12, a savage engine that roared like thunder and pushed the car forward like a rocket. And for the later street versions, they didn't just leave it alone, they cranked it up to a 6.9-liter V12, because why not make it even crazier? The CLK GTR wasn't just a mechanical marvel, it was a work of art. Its sleek, low-slung design was dominated by sharp lines and aerodynamic features, like the massive rear wing and aggressive front splitter. But what made it truly unique was how form follows function. Every curve, every vent, every angle had a purpose, built to slice through the air at brutal speeds and keep the car glued to the asphalt. It was not about looking pretty for a showroom floor. It was about surviving real chaos at the limit. Honestly, if you think some modern supercars even come close to this level of engineering, you are kidding yourself. Prove me wrong. Smash like, hit subscribe, and drop your rant in the comments. The early prototype was so raw, so brutal, that it barely resembled anything you'd recognize from the showroom. The CLK badge on the nose was basically a joke. It was a marketing move to make it seem like it had any connection to the comfy, polished CLK road cars. Underneath, there was no comfort, no compromise. This was a purebred race car, and it didn't care about anything except winning. The men chosen to tame the CLK GTR weren't just good drivers. They were some of the absolute best of their generation. And even then, they didn't treat the car lightly. This wasn't something you just hopped into and went flat out from the first lap. It demanded respect. It demanded fear. Even among professionals who made their living pushing machines to their limits, the CLK GTR stood out as something different, something more dangerous. One of the key drivers was Klaus Ludwig, a German racing legend whose resume already included multiple championships in both touring cars and sports cars. Ludwig had seen and driven it all. He was no stranger to high speeds, brutal handling, and the chaos of endurance racing. But even he admitted that the CLK GTR was a different beast altogether. To drive it fast, you needed absolute laser-focused concentration. There was no room for mistakes, no space for hesitation. One slip, one wrong move, and the car would punish you instantly. Ludwig described the experience as riding the edge of control, where every muscle in your body was tense and alert, fighting to keep the car on that razor-thin line between mastery and disaster. Driving alongside him was Bernd Schneider, another monster behind the wheel. Schneider wasn't just talented, he was a future 5-time DTM champion. He was a man who understood speed better than most. And yet, even Schneider spoke about the CLK GTR with a kind of wary respect. He famously described the car as an animal that respected no one. It didn't care how many trophies you had on your shelf. It didn't care if you were a rookie or a legend. It would only reward total commitment and punish anything less. And here's the incredible part. They didn't just survive it. They didn't just make it to the finish line. They dominated. In its very first season in 1997, the Mercedes-Benz CLK GTR didn't just show up to race, it destroyed everyone. This wasn't some underdog story or a slow climb to the top. From the moment the CLK GTR hit the track, it was like unleashing a storm. Other teams might have been optimistic before the season started, but once the races began, it became painfully clear. Mercedes wasn't here to participate. They were here to dominate. Out of 11 races that year, the CLK GTR won 6, and not just by small margins. It was dominant, overpowering the competition with a brutal mix of raw speed, bulletproof reliability, and relentless aggression. Where others struggled with mechanical issues or worn-out tires, the CLK GTR just kept charging forward like a machine that refused to break. It wasn't luck. It was pure technical superiority, a masterclass in engineering and execution. Bernd Schneider drove the CLK GTR like he was on a mission, pushing it to the edge lap after lap, race after race. His performance that season wasn't just good, it was legendary. With Schneider behind the wheel and the CLK GTR roaring under him, the pairing was almost unfair. While other drivers fought tooth and nail just to keep up, Schneider made it look almost effortless, tearing through circuits across Europe with a kind of controlled fury that few had ever seen. Even the mighty Porsche 911 GT1, which had been designed specifically to dominate this championship, couldn't keep up. The Porsche was fast, no doubt about it. It was a finely tuned racing machine in its own right. But next to the CLK GTR, it looked vulnerable. The Mercedes wasn't just fast, it was fast and reliable, a devastating combination that left rivals scrambling for answers they never found. By the time the final checkered flag fell, there was no debate. Mercedes-Benz had crushed the competition so thoroughly that it felt like they were playing a different game altogether. They didn't just win the Drivers' Championship and the Team's Championship, they redefined what domination looked like in GT racing. Mercedes didn't stop there though. They built the CLK LM, was an even more extreme evolution of the CLK GTR, built specifically to conquer Le Mans with a lighter body, better aerodynamics, and a new naturally aspirated V8 engine for maximum durability and speed. After steamrolling the competition with the CLK GTR and even more brutally with the CLK LM, Mercedes wasn't just winning, they were suffocating the entire FIA GT1 class. By 1998, Porsche, McLaren, and Panos, who were the heavy hitters, realized they were outgunned, badly. They couldn't keep up, no matter how much money or engineering muscle they threw at it. Mercedes had raised the bar so high that racing against them wasn't even a battle anymore. It was a slow, humiliating execution. And no one likes spending millions just to get lapped. So one by one, the competition started backing out. Porsche ditched their GT1 program. McLaren pulled the plug. Ferrari didn't even bother putting the F50 GT into full production. The field thinned out so fast that the GT1 grid was basically just Mercedes racing against themselves. And when the 1999 season came around, the writing was already on the wall. No competition meant no point. No audience, no excitement. just boring victories. Then came the final blow at Le Mans, when the infamous CLR flip turned Mercedes into a headline for all the wrong reasons. After watching their car somersault across the French countryside in front of a global audience, Mercedes decided they had had enough. They pulled out of GT racing completely, packing up their toys and going home. And with them, the entire GT1 category collapsed. To make it road legal, Mercedes made a few tweaks to comply with the street regulations. But let's be real here, they didn't exactly tame the beast, they just put a slightly softer leash on it. The engine was still a screaming 6.9-liter V12, the same beastly heart that powered the race car, only now it was pumping out around 612 horsepower. And just to make sure it all went where it needed to, Mercedes paired it with a 6-speed sequential manual gearbox that felt like it was built for Formula One. Every shift was a violent jolt of power, a feeling that made you question whether you were still on a public road or barreling down a racetrack. The performance was nothing short of insane. This car could rocket from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 3.8 seconds, faster than most sports cars could dream of. And it didn't stop there. It could reach a top speed of around 211 miles per hour, a figure so mind-boggling that it made even the most hardened gearheads shake their heads in disbelief. Mercedes didn't make many of these monsters. Only 26 road cars were ever made, 20 coupe versions and 6 ultra-rare roadsters, making each one a priceless collector's item. While the raw power of the CLK GTR is often the center of attention, one thing that never fails to captivate people is the car's incredible sound. The 6.9-liter V12 engine produces an otherworldly, spine-tingling noise that's almost as fast as the car itself. The sound is a guttural, aggressive roar, an absolute auditory assault that would send shivers down anyone's spine, whether on the track or the road. For car enthusiasts, this is part of the magic of the CLK GTR. It didn't just perform, it sounded like a beast in its element, cementing its status as a true motorsport icon. But taking this thing out on public roads was a whole different kind of challenge. It wasn't just a car, it was a civilian death machine. If you thought you were going to cruise through traffic and take it easy, think again. The CLK GTR hated speed bumps with a passion. It would feel like the car was going to snap in half if you hit one. It despised traffic, and it wasn't shy about letting you know. The steering was so sensitive that even thinking about changing lanes could send you swerving into the next lane. Parking it was an absolute nightmare. It had the kind of steering that didn't just respond to your hands. It seemed to react to your thoughts, making it almost impossible to drive smoothly in tight spaces. And let's not even talk about visibility. The view out the front window was so limited that you might have thought you were driving a Formula One car rather than something street legal. You could forget about seeing pedestrians or any of the little details around you. The car demanded your undivided attention, and even the smallest lapse could have serious consequences. And comfort? That word didn't even exist in the CLK GTR's dictionary. It wasn't built for daily commutes or school runs. It wasn't designed for luxury or convenience. It was built to make you respected, to keep you on edge every second you spent behind the wheel. The car was a reminder that you were no longer in control of a vehicle. You were simply a passenger in a machine that could take you to the edge of sanity, if you weren't careful. And yet, despite all its insanity, there were civilian incidents that showed just how dangerous the CLK GTR could be when pushed too far. Reports surfaced about owners crashing the car, unable to handle its raw power and aggressive handling, even on public roads. One particularly infamous incident involved an owner who had just taken delivery of their brand new CLK GTR. The car, still in its break-in period, was taken out for a casual spin on a quiet road. But things quickly went south. With its steering so twitchy and its immense acceleration, the car slammed into a tree after the driver overcompensated while attempting to avoid a sharp corner. Luckily, the driver walked away, but the car was totaled. It was clear that the CLK GTR wasn't a car you took out for fun on a lazy Sunday. It was a high-stakes game, and if you didn't respect the rules, the car would make sure you paid the price. But if you thought Mercedes stopped with that, you'd be wrong once again. Yeah, they made an even more powerful version, which was the Mercedes CLK GTR Supersport. This isn't just an upgrade. It's the final boss version of the already insane CLK GTR. The Super Sport took everything that made the original a powerhouse and threw even more firepower into the mix. Instead of the 6.9-liter V12 that already sent chills down your spine, Mercedes dropped in a massive 7.3-liter V12 that was essentially a nuclear reactor on wheels. This engine wasn't just big, it was outrageously powerful, pushing the limits of what a naturally aspirated engine could achieve. This exact V12 later found a home in the Pagani Zonda, which tells you just how special it is. When a car shares its engine with a hypercar from one of the most exclusive brands in the world, you know you're dealing with something serious. But the thing is, only 5 of these bad boys were ever made. Let that sink in. 5. That's less than the number of fingers on most people's hands, and it makes the CLK GTR Super Sport even more exclusive than a private jet membership. Owning one of these is like holding the keys to a piece of automotive history that not many will ever even see, let alone drive. But it wasn't just about bigger engines or exclusivity. The CLK GTR Super Sport also had a host of tweaks to its aerodynamics, suspension, and overall setup that made it even more lethal on the track. It was sharper, faster, and more aggressive, like they took a lion and gave it steroids. Today, the Mercedes CLK GTR is considered a holy grail among collectors, a car so rare and revered that it's almost a mythical object in the automotive world. If you want to get your hands on one, you'd better have a very deep wallet. Recent auctions have seen these masterpieces of engineering fetch over $10 million. But even you were to buy one, that would only be the beginning of the madness. Owning one is like signing up for a lifetime subscription to stress and empty bank accounts. Simple maintenance stuff like fluid changes, belt replacements, and basic inspections can easily cost 6 figures. That's right. Routine service can run you hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that's if you can even find someone qualified to touch the thing without blowing it up. Replacement parts are impossible to find. Most components are either completely out of production or have to be custom fabricated at horrifying expense. Need a new suspension arm? That's not a quick order from Amazon. You might need to have one specially machined from original blueprints. Brake rotors? Those aren't coming from your local parts store either. Even the tires are a headache because modern replacements that fit properly are rare and expensive. And heaven forbid the engine needs a major service. That glorious 6.9-liter V12 is hand-built, race-tuned, and borderline medieval in its complexity. Rebuilding one can easily cross the $500,000 mark, assuming you even find someone insane enough to take on the job. So while the auction price might be $10 million, keeping it alive is another $1 million challenge all on its own. By now, it's safe to say that this car was surely ahead of its time. The CLK GTR wasn't just a road car with racing elements, it was a race car, barely disguised as something road legal. The car's use of full carbon fiber monocoque construction, which was only seen in Formula One cars before this, revolutionized the industry. By introducing this technology to the civilian market, Mercedes set the stage for what hypercars would eventually become. Cars like the Bugatti Veyron, McLaren P1, and LaFerrari, machines we now regard as the pinnacle of automotive engineering, owe a significant part of their DNA to the groundbreaking work Mercedes did with the CLK GTR. What made the CLK GTR truly ahead of its time was its philosophy. It wasn't just designed to drive fast. It was built to survive the extreme forces that come with that kind of performance. The focus wasn't on comfort or luxury. Mercedes was thinking beyond that. They created a car that could handle the kind of power and speed that no one else was even considering for the roads. This was a time when cars with 400 horsepower were considered extreme. The CLK GTR doubled that and then some, completely changing the conversation. But even more important than its specs was how it shifted the future of automotive design. The CLK GTR showed the world that you could make a car that wasn't just inspired by racing. It was designed for racing, made to survive it, and simply adapted for the street. It was a lesson in how to build something that was beyond cutting edge. A car so advanced that it felt like it came from a future no one was prepared for. Do you think cars like this Mercedes are pushing the limits of safety too far, or is it just extreme performance? Let me know in the comments. Like, share, and if you want to see the new Chevrolet Chevelle hit the streets, check out the previous video. Subscribe for more shocking car stories.